Hi, everyone. This is Jason. Welcome back to the show. My guest today is Mark Jeffrey, founder and CEO of Guardian Circle. Mark is an entrepreneur and author. His works include Bitcoin Explained Simply and The Case for Bitcoin. Mark, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
We were talking about the Guardian Circle app, and I was immediately blown away by it because what you're doing is actually, I think, going to help a lot of people in situations of emergency. You just saw the fires that we had in California a few days ago, actually. And we had this in Los Angeles, we had this thing called the Great Shakeout, which is an earthquake preparedness day. So the ability to coordinate and keep in contact with your neighbors, friends, and family in events of emergency is very important. So I was immediately taken with what you were telling me and with the app itself. So my first question, though, because there is a blockchain cryptocurrency aspect to this application, how did you first get into cryptocurrency?
Well, so I used to run a company called This Weekend with the comedian Kevin Pollak and Jason Calacanis. And Jason had a show. It was a podcast network of video shows. Jason Calacanis had a video show called This Week in Startups. And sometime in 2011, he had a guest on the show who described Bitcoin on air. That was the first time I'd heard of it. And I remembered that show because I remember I listened to almost all the shows, whether they were being recorded live, and something about that stuck in my head. However, I didn't really buy it. It reminded me very much of something called Flues, which was a digital currency promoted by Whoopi Goldberg during the dot-com boom and crash years. And it was one of several digital currencies that went absolutely nowhere. It just because people were like, why would I use this stupid thing instead of dollars, right? That was sort of the thinking. So I was like, well, this Bitcoin thing is just the latest symptom of that same madness. It's not going to go anywhere. And then in 2013, it started popping up again on my radar quite a bit. And there were kind of two people who were raving lunatics about it. One of them was Brock Pierce, who's one of the main guys behind EOS, and another guy named Michael Turpin. And they're both very, very, very different people. And usually I find when very, very different people are excited about the same thing, that you should pay attention to it because that's a good sort of gauge. So at that point I was like, well, maybe this isn't bull crap. So I dug into it, and like everyone, I had kind of all the light bulbs go off and the angels sing in my head, right? When I understood what I was seeing, when I finally got it, I was like, oh my god. And I'm an engineer by training, and I sort of made several runs at trying to figure out how I would practice as an engineer. And of course, like everyone else, every time I tried, I came up against a blank wall. And was amazed with each successive attempt at how awesomely and beautifully created it really was. And then I became a believer. So that's when I wrote the first book, Bitcoin Explained Simply, because as I searched for an explanation myself of how it worked and why it was important, there were a lot of very dense technical explanations about it, and sort of like raving mad libertarian lunatic explanations about it, but nothing that was just sort of sober and simple. And so I wrote what I thought was the only sober and simple version of the explanation. So that's how I got into it.
Nice. And we say raving like that's a bad thing.
Well, I mean, I think when you're gushing like that much, like the average person is just not going to listen to you because they're going to think, okay, you're insane. I can just hear insanity in your voice.
Right.
Right. And you may very well be communicating something that is of worth, but because you're so kind of insane about it, like normal people will shut down. So
Yeah. Well, to that point, and it was one of the things that I experienced when I first got into the space, is it was so cool. Like it's so new, and this is gonna change the world. And you go into your, tirade about Bitcoin, and their eyes just kind of glazed over, right?
Right. Well, it sounds like you're talking, if you don't really explain it right, it sounds like you're just talking about magic internet dollars, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. if you don't explain it correctly and simply, hence the
Yeah.
book,
Yep.
you potentially could lose your audience. And I think a lot of us had that happen, unfortunately.
Let's be honest, we failed to date. I mean, there's only 30 million to 50 million wallets out there total in all of cryptocurrency. So we have not reached anywhere near mass adoption yet.
Yeah.
So to date, we have failed to explain this thing adequately and or provide adequate user interfaces.
Right.
So
Yeah. So let's talk about Guardian Circle. So Guardian Circle is rolling out onto iOS and Google Play soon.
yeah.
And can you give us some backstory on the app? Like, what was the idea behind Guardian Circle?
Yeah. So several years back, two things kind of happened in rapid succession. One, I'm old friends with Travis Kalanick, who is the ex CEO now of Uber, and I worked on his second company, Red Swoosh, with him. So it was just him, me, and like a couple other guys in a room for about a year and a half. So got to know him fairly well. Anyway, after he in 2014, sometime after he raised the first giant gob of money for Uber, which was more than anyone had ever raised for a private company. I managed to have a chat with him, and we were talking about what he was going to do with that money. And he basically said, "Well, we've gotten very good at moving people around. Now we're going to move things. And what do you think about that?" And my response was basically, "I don't like that plan because your magic power as Uber is you coordinate business between all these entities that are always in motion. The riders in the cars are always moving, and you have real-time knowledge of their current location. That's your magic. If you're going to move that to dead things, things don't move, right? So you only gain efficiency with things, with warehouses and having fleets of trucks. And at that point, you're moving very deeply into the world of atoms rather than staying in the pure information space. I don't like that. You're outside of your core competency at that point."
Right.
He didn't like that answer, but nonetheless, I still felt it was correct. And he was like, "Okay, so give me an example of something we should go into." I was like, "Well, I don't know. It's you want to look for another intelligence grid problem for things that are in real time motion." And it really bothered me that I couldn't come up with another example. I was like, "Well, maybe I'm wrong." And then a couple of weeks after that, my girlfriend had a stroke, and she had it in her office, her garage office, and she was all alone, and she was on the floor for like half an hour before I found her and brought her to the hospital. And now she's okay. I like to say that right up front. This is not the girlfriend memorial app.
Right.
So it turned out okay. But afterwards, I started sort of reverse engineering what had happened, and I realized that time matters with strokes. You have to get to the hospital within a certain amount of time. Luckily, what she had was actually a form of migraine that presented exactly like a stroke. So it wasn't a full-on stroke. If it had been, she may have been brain damaged. Nonetheless, timing is of importance here. And I realized that there were actually several parties around her at the moment this was occurring who could have provided assistance had they only known something was going on.
Right.
And there was her neighbor who was home. There were several people that were driving in cars nearby at that moment. There's a few other neighbors that lived sort of close by. In total, there were about 7 people within 1,000 yards of her during the duration of this event.
Wow.
And so my first thought was, so I thought of basically Guardian Circle in my head. Push a button, help comes. That's what the app should do. Just notifies friends, family, and neighbors, and throws everyone into a chat room and puts them all on a map so everybody knows where everybody else is and everybody can communicate. I thought of that in my head, and I said, "Oh, well, somebody must have done this." And so I'll just download that app for her. And to my amazement, I found that no one had built that. A lot of people had built electronic screens for help. So just push a button and text messages fly out to people with links on them saying, "I'm in trouble, click here to save me," right? And my first thought was, well, if I got that, I definitely wouldn't click that link because I don't know what that is.
Right.
But I would probably call I would call my girlfriend, right? And so her phone would start blowing up with all these inbound phone calls, but that wouldn't really help her, right? So none of these people had taken care of the second half of the problem, which is creating a response community and organizing and sending the response.
Right.
And I just couldn't believe that was the case. So I decided to build it. That's how it happened.
Okay. Nice. So so I noticed that in the on the website it talked about you have your group that you can set up that's predefined in the app, but that it can also alert people around you that so how does that work? Does it emit a sound or something like that?
Yeah. So, well, no, no. So so it's a silent alert from from your phone. So if you're under assault or you're hiding in a closet or something, nobody's going to hear it.
Right.
The bad guy's not going to hear a siren or anything like that. So, so basically, what you do is you download the app. You get your friends, family, and neighbors to also download the app, and then you connect explicitly in the app with them. Is what we call guardians. It's sort of like being friends in Facebook. Same idea.
Right.
If someone's annoying you by hitting their button a lot, you can always unguard them. They're sort of similar to unfriending someone, right?
Right.
So, so there's that. If you choose, you can also have your alerts go out to anyone nearby who has Guardian Circle, so strangers.
Ah,
And on,
okay.
yeah, and on their end, they have to have opted into receiving alerts from strangers as well, right?
Right.
So it's a double opt-in thing.
Okay.
And it's totally up to you whether you want strangers in your response profile. And then in the near future, we're also going to add regular 911. So if you want, your alert can also go to your local 911 Peace app, which is the response centers.
Right.
Um, and we're also going to add additional optional paid private EMTs, private security, all that sort of stuff. So there'll be a wide range of things you can add or not include in your response profile.
Nice. Okay. So if you're building your group, my
Yep.
next question is how large of a group can one person create? Is there a limit?
There is no limit. You can have one person, you can have 10,000. We do not limit that in any way.
Okay. Okay. And one reason why I thought of that was in an event of a natural disaster, you're going to have a lot of people who need help at the same time. Right.
Yes,
So we can look at this thing and say, there's a lot of people in need of assistance right now on the app. Because we talked about it earlier, there's a map, right? Does it pinpoint to a specific location the person or
so it's exactly like Uber, right? You know how Uber like knows the address of where you are when you summon a car?
right?
We do the same thing. We actually use the same lookup library.
Okay,
So, right, so it'll say Mark created this alert near 4750 Lincoln Boulevard, right? And it's just because that's the nearest address to where I hit the alert button. But I want to go back to the mass emergency thing that you said before. So things like earthquakes, floods, fires, things like that, where everyone at once is in trouble, right?
right,
And in those situations, regular 911 is overwhelmed. In
yeah,
many cases, like you get busy signals. They just can't. It's like regular 911 can get DDoS very easily
right,
during those situations, right?
right, right,
So, so Guardian Circle is really great for that. One of the other things that's really great, a feature that's in there, is we allow for multiple inbound simultaneous alerts. So what
right,
that means is if you have like 20 people in your alert group and 5 of them are in trouble at the same time because it's a mass emergency and they're all sending out alerts, you have 5 inbound alerts. You can easily jump in and out of everyone's alert rooms, like putting calls on hold. So
oh,
we handle
okay,
that, right? So it's not like we just handle one alert at a time. We can handle all 5. We can handle 10. We can handle 20. You do have to have an internet connectivity. You do have to have internet connectivity of some sort in order for Guardian Circle to work.
okay.
So, unfortunately, that's a limitation of physics. So I can't really,
Yeah, you can't really do anything with
speak on
that.
what I'm sorry. I'd love to be able to bend the laws of physics, but right
Right,
now, sort of beyond us. Maybe
right.
with more fun, but we'll see.
But you wouldn't need AT&T the ability to make a phone call to
No,
for the app to work.
you're, yeah. So if the phone system is down, we would still work as long as the data was still up.
Okay, nice.
And there are people, look, there are people approaching us about integrating mesh networks into Guardian Circle. So even if the cell service was down, but there were enough phones to sort of interconnect and create a ad hoc mesh network, it
Right,
would still work, right? So we're talking to some of those people. Satellite is another group that we're talking to,
right.
especially for people who live in the Bahamas and they already use satellite kind of all the time, or
Definitely.
Australia, right? So things like that.
Well, let me ask you about bringing it back to blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Um, the token that's associated with Guardian Circle, um, how does that factor into the company, the app itself? What's the relationship there?
Yeah, so we've created this community emergency response network. We also created this token called Guard, which you earn for guarding people, for responding, and for growing the network. So basically, as you add value to the network or grow it in some way, you earn Guard.
Mm.
And um, because most humans on Earth, as we discussed earlier, are not familiar with cryptocurrency or never used it before, the usage of Guard within Guardian Circle is assumed for absolute beginners. So there is an in-app Guard wallet that we provide, and it is a much simpler wallet than ones you will see for other cryptocurrencies. The main more simple feature is you send Guard to someone using this wallet um, only with their face and their name. So you're like, I want to send Guard to that person that I'm Guardians with. You never interface with a crypto address. You don't have to use. We've gotten rid of crypto addresses. Just like you don't surf the internet right now with IP addresses, you surf with domain names. We basically allow you to send crypto to a face and a name. You don't ever have to see that person's crypto address. Um, so there's that. And then on the back end, so the one thing we haven't talked about yet, another feature of Guardian Circle, which the end user usually does not see, is any hardware device can be paired with any Guardian Circle account to generate alerts using the Guardian Circle API. So, typical devices are like a wearable panic button, like I've fallen and I can't get up panic buttons, that kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
But also like, crash detection in cars, heart rate monitors, fall detection. There's a million things.
Nice.
And basically, to access our API, it requires Guard. So there is a back-end usage that I think will actually eventually be the primary use case. So, and we are talking with a number of hardware companies about integrating their hardware with us. We have already integrated Amazon Alexa, so that works today.
Okay.
And we previously had partnered with the X Prize Foundation on the Women's Safety X Prize, which was a women's panic button device contest. So we had over 100 devices, contestant devices plugged into Guardian Circle. There were 22 finalists, and we went out to Mumbai, India with the 22 finalists and tested all their devices plugged into Guardian Circle on the streets of Mumbai over like a week-long period.
Oh, wow.
So we've really, we've used this API quite a bit, and we've used Guard to power that API quite a bit already.
Nice. So with that integration, you said that it's already rolled out to Alexa.
Yes.
And then you'll be moving out to other devices down the road using the API for Guard.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very cool. My last question, and it's I think we kind of touched on it just now. What is next for Guardian? When can we expect the app to be fully available on app stores, iOS, and Google Play?
Yeah. So at this point, it'll be out right before the end of October.
Okay.
So I can't give you an exact date because the reason why it's been delayed, we actually have it done. So it's sitting there, sort of queued up, in iTunes, the App Store, and in Google Play, but we haven't released it yet. We are waiting on a big article in a big outlet, and they have not told us yet when that article is going to drop. So we're sort of coordinating with press people at the moment.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty soon. It's like we're within about a week or so of it coming out. So
nice. Can't wait. Please keep me updated, and
I will.
We'll stay in touch, and we'll revisit it after the launch so that we can show people how it works, and we'll do a tutorial video. How about that?
That would be great. I'd love to come back for that.
All right. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. Everyone, if you would like more information, I'm going to link the Guardian Circle website in the description below, as well as Mark's contact details if you have any questions for him. Mark, thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Very much love to be here. Thank you.
Take care.